Call this meeting of the Education Assessment and Accountability Review Subcommittee to order. As we call the roll, I ask members to indicate if they are present. Please call the roll.
Senator Deneen.
Here.
Senator Neal. Senator Wilson. Representative Banta.
Present.
Representative Bojanowski.
Here.
Representative Riley. Co-Chair Lewis.
Here.
Co-Chair West.
Here. We have a quorum. We have a quorum. Duly constituted to conduct business. If you would please silence your cell phones. I want to tell all the members and presenters today that we're on a pretty tight schedule. So this meeting will be about a half an hour. We are going to go, committee will stand at 8. We're going to go a little bit out of order. We have some members that are on a tight schedule, so we're going to go ahead and vote on the subject for the study this year. And so the research agenda for a 2023 topic, it's in everybody's meeting materials. You should have had it. And so we will now vote on that. Just a second. Representative Bojanowski, you have a question? Can you turn your microphone on?
Is it okay to ask a question or discuss
Sure,
the topic
yes, go
before we
ahead.
vote? Okay, so I know one of the studies is to study governance of districts, and part of it was school choice. I'd like to know if that would include the impact of voucher type programs on state budgets and public education as evidenced in other states. Would that be a part of that study as it's written?
If you could hold that thought.
Well, we do have in there school choice opportunities, which could.
Bart might have the best answer to that, but that topic has already been approved.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yes, I did
Do you
know
still
that.
need him to go into the?
No, that's
Go
okay.
ahead.
That's okay,
You
because
good?
that's not what we're voting on. So.
Correct. Yeah, we're not voting
it's fine.
on that.
We could talk to her about it.
We need a motion on the topic for the study. We have a motion. We have a second. Second. All those in favor vote aye. Opposed, nay.
I'm going to mention.
Straight voice vote. Okay, we're good. Ayes have it.
Could I point out in that first paragraph of the document you have, we have the district data profiles, which was also approved, but we also just wanted to point out that we're updating the interactive Seek tool and that we will make that an annual thing. So when we do the district data profiles, we'll update the data on the Seek tool that'll allow you to have the most current data. And that's just mentioned in the paragraph above the study topic.
Got it.
Okay.
Duly noted. Thank you. We also need to approve the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Motion. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. So now we have the meat of this meeting. We have the Office of Education Accountability Report, Kentucky Public School Employee Staffing Shortages. Floor is yours. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Sabrina Cummins.
Allison Stevens.
Bartley Worry, Office of Education Accountability.
Thank you. Take off.
Good morning. Last year, EARS assigned OEA a study to review staffing shortages and recruitment and retention issues. How's that? How do you get off that part? Can you just do the arrow? See, this is what it does. When you leave it sit for so long, it does that for some reason. Okay, we'll start that again. Last year, EARS assigned OEA a study to review staffing shortages and recruitment and retention issues in public education. This presentation discusses what superintendents, principals, and teachers are saying about the current working conditions. In addition, data will be presented on staffing employment trends. OEA staff used lots of different data to complete this study, from the Kentucky Department of Education, the Kentucky Center for Statistics, and the Council for Better or Post-Secondary Education. In addition, OEA sent surveys to superintendents, principals, and teachers. Staff visited 6 districts and 12 schools and held interviews with superintendents, central office staff, principals, and classroom teachers. The OEA teacher survey was not usable due to a low response rate. Therefore, we used the KDE biannual impact survey to review working conditions. However, the superintendent response rate was 92% and the principal response rate was 50%. We will now review the major conclusions from our report. Across the nation, many employers, not just school boards, are having issues with staffing shortages. Teacher shortages have long existed in Kentucky, usually affecting particular subject areas and types of schools, but the magnitude has increased this last year, reaching the majority of all schools and subjects. In addition, since the pandemic, districts are now faced with classified staffing shortages. Principals are saying we have a major issue with the supply and quality of teacher applicants. Enrollment in teacher prep programs have declined. In addition, some of the lowest passing rates on the Praxis 2 exam include subjects with persistent teacher shortages, such as STEM subjects, world languages, and English as a second language. In Kentucky, when a district can't hire a qualified teacher, they resort to hiring someone that holds a bachelor's degree and an emergency certificate from EPSB. The number of teachers holding an emergency certificate has doubled in the last 3 years. Large disparities in perception of school leadership exist between teachers and principals. Superintendents and principals are overwhelmingly reporting that staff are leaving public education for better pay. While this is true for classified staff, it is not accurate for the majorities of teachers who are leaving. So how are districts dealing with staffing shortages? Some superintendents and principals have resorted to retaining staff due to poor performance that would have been terminated in prior years from fear of not being able to find another candidate to take their place. In addition, districts are contracting with outside agencies, but these may pose other issues. And finally, districts are receiving less funds due to student attendance rates and the ending of the federal pandemic funds. I will now turn the presentation over to Allison, who will report our findings of the teaching profession.
Thank you, Sabrina. Let's begin by discussing how Kentucky helps its citizens become teachers. The Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority wholly or partially administers, 16 state-funded teacher grant or scholarship programs. 2 of these are shown here. The Teacher Scholarship Program offers needs-based financial aid in the form of a conversion loan scholarship in exchange for teaching. The Early Childhood Development Scholarship is for child care workers to become teachers and may provide full tuition. These 2 programs had 519 recipients in 2022. There are also several federal financial assistance programs. The Teach Grant offers up to $4,000 as conversion grant loans. The Teacher Loan Forgiveness Program allows up to $17,500 in student loan forgiveness. And the Perkins Loan Teacher Cancellation Program allows up to 100% student loan cancellation in exchange for teaching service. Gateway Community and Technical College offers an associate's degree in pre-education, and graduates can pursue a bachelor's degree at Northern Kentucky University in an education-related field. Since 2018, 196 students have enrolled, and 46 have gone on to earn a bachelor's degree. The Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship Program offers free tuition towards an associate's degree in a high-demand workforce sector, which does not currently include education. OEA analyzed students who graduated from Kentucky high schools between 2009 and 2015 and found that 4.6% returned to work in Kentucky schools between 2013 and 2022. Of these graduates, nearly half of certified personnel and nearly 1/4 of classified personnel worked in the same district from which they graduated. There are several programs in Kentucky to bring high school students into the teaching profession. Through the Teaching and Learning Career Pathway, students begin pursuing a career in education while still in high school and may receive work-ready dual-credit scholarships for tuition costs associated with the program. KDE reported 2,002 students enrolled in this program in 2023. The Nelson County Grow Your Own Teacher Program is a partnership with Western Kentucky University that allows students to work towards full teacher certification 2 years after high school. And Option 9 is a route to alternative certification where candidates earn initial certification and a bachelor's degree while working as classified personnel. There are currently 20 partnerships between districts and higher education institutions, but this program is so new that no teachers have come through this route yet. Teacher preparation programs prepare future teachers through a 4-year bachelor's degree program or advanced degree program for initial certification. And this slide shows candidates completing teacher preparation programs by subject area for school years 2013 through 2022, compared as 2 5-year groupings. The report shows grade level preparation as well, but we've pulled out the academic subject areas here. Nearly all subjects have seen decreases in 2018 to 2022 compared to 2013 to 2017. Although world languages remained mostly the same, that's only 76 completers. English as a second language decreased by 61.7%. Overall, including grade level preparation, there are about 1,500 fewer teacher preparation program completers from 2018 to 2022 compared to 2013 to 2017. To become a teacher, Kentucky requires candidates to pass the Praxis 2 exam to demonstrate competency for teaching. There are 60 different subject areas, and the average pass rate was 95% from 2018 to 2023. This slide shows the subject areas where the average pass rate was less than 90%. Notice math and world languages, most of which have pass rates below 70%. Let's move on to the types of certificates teachers can hold. Professional certificates are for teachers who have passed all requirements for full certification, usually as part of a bachelor's degree program. Provisional certificates are issued to allow teachers to teach while they're in the process of attaining full certification. We will be focusing on emergency and alternative certificates in the next slide. Emergency certificates are issued when districts cannot fill a position and have proven they were unable to hire a qualified teacher. Emergency certificates have increased over 400% from 547 in 2020 to 2,935 in 2023, but are still less than 1% of all teaching certificates. Alternative certificates are available to distinguish skilled professionals with valuable work experience. Once these teachers fulfill all teaching requirements to receive full professional certification, they are indistinguishable in the certificate data from teachers who went through a more traditional route. This means that with the data available to us, we were unable to track how many teachers with full certification went through an alternative route and how many went through a traditional route. What we can say is how many teachers currently have an alternative certificate and are not yet fully qualified to have a full professional teaching certificate. Alternative certificates increased 72% from 2,184 in 2020 to 3,763 in 2022. So let's now turn to the number of unfilled teaching positions. When a teacher position opens, it is posted on the Kentucky Educator Placement Services website. Unfortunately, KEPS does not show how many total teaching positions are currently unfilled. It is only able to show posted teaching positions. So OEA staff found that 277 positions were still posted as open at the start of the 2023 school year, as shown on this slide. This is an increase of 260% over the 77 positions in 2019. Approximately half were for elementary education, and 1/3 were for exceptional child teacher positions. Both are increases over 2019. We will now turn to teacher turnover. Teacher turnover refers to the percentage of teachers from the previous year that did not return to teach at the same location in the current year. This slide shows the average annual turnover by school, district, and state. Turnover tends to decrease as the reference area expands because teachers may move among schools within a district or the state. At all levels, there was an uptick in 2023, but otherwise, teacher turnover has remained fairly steady between school years 2014 and 2022. We also looked at teachers who left the teaching profession for at least 1 year between 2010 and 2015 and then returned to teaching. We selected these years to allow teachers time to return to teaching and appear in the data. We found that, on average, 7% of teachers left teaching for at least 1 year, and teachers left at higher rates in their first few years of teaching. About 1/3 returned to teaching, most within 3 years. New teachers tend to return at slightly higher rates, but few teachers who retire return to teaching. Schools with high teacher turnover tend to share similar characteristics. We divided schools into quartiles, where quartile 1 represents low teacher turnover and quartile 4 represents high teacher turnover. Schools with higher teacher turnover tend to have more students eligible for free and reduced price lunch, more minority students, and more teachers with 4 or fewer years of experience. OEA staff analyzed the impact survey to determine teachers' reported experiences teaching in high and low turnover schools. Teachers from schools with low turnover rates more positively viewed the teaching profession, their working environment, student behaviors, and support from their school administration. In the highest turnover schools, principals averaged 30.2 percentage points higher than teachers. To expand on this further, OEA staff analyzed 34 questions on the impact survey and found that principals had the highest rates of positive responses, averaging 85.6, whereas teachers answered positively 58.4% of the time. That's a difference of 27.2 percentage points. This is important because support from school leadership may help keep teachers, but this indicates that principals have a more positive outlook on what it's like to be a teacher in Kentucky than teachers do. We will now turn to severe shortage areas. The OEA survey asked principals to describe the supply and quality of teacher applicants and the supply of applicants compared to 5 years ago. The survey questions and response options are shown on this slide. The 2019 OEA report on teacher shortages also included a survey with these questions, and responses from 2019 will be included for comparison. We want to see principals reporting generally enough or an abundance of satisfactory applicants. However, in 2023, fewer than 1/3 of principals reported generally enough or an abundance of satisfactory applicants in every subject area except elementary education. What we don't want to see is a high percentage of principals reporting no applicants or no satisfactory applicants. However, that is what we saw. We asked principals about applicants in 22 subject areas and found that teacher shortages are occurring in nearly every one to some degree, and the percent of unavailable or unsatisfactory applicants increased from 2019 to 2023 in every area. This slide shows the subjects where more than 40% of principals reported no applicants or no satisfactory applicants in 2023. That's half of the 22 subjects we asked about. For the remaining subjects, at least 19% of principals reported no available or no satisfactory applicants, except elementary education and PE. So let's add in the percentage of principals reporting fewer or considerably fewer applicants in 2023 compared to 5 years ago. In 6 of the 11 subjects shown on this slide, fewer applicants were reported by at least 90% of principals. The report shows this percentage was greater than 70% for all subject areas except physical education. So to summarize, teacher shortages are occurring in every subject area, and they're getting worse. This slide combines indicators of teacher shortages to identify 6 severe shortage areas. Each subject has a high percentage of unavailable or unsatisfactory applicants, particularly physics. A high percentage of principals reported fewer applicants in 2023 compared to 5 years ago, particularly physics, chemistry, and high school math at over 90%. These subject areas have disproportionately high percentages of alternative and emergency certificates, particularly English as a second language. And lastly, fewer than 200 candidates completed teacher preparation programs in any science area between 2018 and 2022, and there were only 76 world languages and 54 English as a second language program completers between these years. And although there were 1,600 exceptional child teachers preparation program completers between 2018 and 2022, there were 375 fewer in these years compared to 2013 to 2017. These are also areas with the lowest praxis pass rates. In addition, all of these subjects were identified as critical shortage areas by the Kentucky Department of Education for school year 2024. We will now discuss barriers to teacher recruitment and retention reported by principals. As we just demonstrated, the greatest barrier reported was lack of qualified candidates in general and in specific subjects. Additional barriers included lack of respect from society, from parents, and from the local community, student behavior, and geographic location. Salary and benefits compared to the private sector and other districts were also cited as barriers. However, OEA staff analyzed wage data for individual teachers and found that 65% of teachers who left the public teaching profession in 2019 were earning approximately $5,000 less in Kentucky 3 years later. So what happens when schools experience teacher shortages? The 2023 OEA survey asked principals about the effects of teacher shortages. 86% of principals reported that teachers give up their planning period to cover classes. Most said this happens either several times per month or a few times per year. Principals also reported increasing class sizes, eliminating a class, or combining programs. Nearly half of principals reported using long-term substitutes for unfilled classroom positions, and these effects may exacerbate any problems with teachers' working conditions. To mitigate teacher shortages, principals reported hiring alternatively or emergency certified teachers, advertising on social media, hiring retired teachers, and recruiting from college fairs and the local community. However, principals reported these strategies could not completely overcome teacher shortages or successfully compete with the private sector. I will now turn the presentation back over to Sabrina, who will discuss classified recruitment and retention findings.
Thank you, Allison. Since the pandemic, districts have been faced with classified staffing shortages. The largest decline is in transportation or bus drivers. followed by operations, which includes your custodians, and then food service workers. While instructional staff have increased, superintendents reported that they still needed to hire an additional 900 instructional aides this past year, of which 63% were to help with exceptional children. Most superintendents stated that they had a lack of qualified candidates applying for classified jobs. In addition, superintendents mentioned that they are retaining staff that would have been terminated for poor performance in prior years. This includes both certified and classified staff. One superintendent terminated 2 classified employees due to poor performance, but hired them back because there were no applicants who applied for the jobs. Several districts have started to outsource custodial, mechanic, and bus monitor jobs. However, moving to this model may pose other staffing issues. In fact, one superintendent stated that we tried outsourcing custodial work, but the company we contracted with sent us convicted felons and people that were using drugs, even though our contract explicitly asked for thorough background checks. Superintendents are addressing staffing shortages at the district level by attending career fairs, working with local universities, using Facebook and other recruiting platforms, and offering financial incentives. And 88% of superintendents reported that their district has staff mentoring programs. Most, 88% of superintendents reported that classified salaries are insufficient compared to what employees can make outside of public education. Bus drivers and food service workers doubled their salaries after leaving public education workforce. This could be due to staff in these jobs only work normally 4 to 6 hours a day, and both jobs are only needed when students are in session instead of all year. While secretaries and operational staff increase their pay 30% after leaving, these public education jobs are normally a full-time job. We will now discuss some financial challenges districts are currently facing, starting with the federal pandemic funds. Next year, districts will need to spend all of their remaining federal ESSER funding. Some districts were creative in moving existing staff's payroll expenses to ESSER funding. This allowed them to free up unrestricted money from their general fund for other expenses later on. Almost half of the certified staff and a third of the classified staff being paid with ESSER funding were already existing staff at the district. Here are the new positions that were added using ESSER funding, and only 20% of the newly created certified and classified jobs will be retained after funding ends next year. Another issue facing school districts includes students' attendance rates. Kentucky has lost over 22,000 public education students in the last 10 years, while the number of certified staff has increased by 1,558, of which 500 were teachers. In addition, since the pandemic, students are attending school less.
If you could stop right there just a second.
Sure.
And do me a favor, I'm trying to allow a little bit more time for questions because I know there's probably going to be several questions. If you could skip to slide 36. We all have these slides in our files, so we can review those at our leisure, but if you could skip to that one and then...
Start from here?
Yes.
Okay. In conclusion of this report, state and local leaders must continue addressing staffing issues at the district and school level. State and local leaders must collaborate and make changes to ensure teacher prep program enrollments increase. staffing status updates are needed, and any changes to laws that affect staffing recruitment and retention should be evaluated to determine effectiveness. These reviews should include student achievement due to buses not running on schedule, combined classes, or reduction in subjects being taught due to a lack of teachers. The rest of the presentation will discuss our recommendations in the report. We will start with suggestions on how to increase teacher prep programs and help track and alleviate staffing data. First, we recommend KDE to consider adding back some TEL survey questions into the Impact Working Conditions Survey. These questions will help understand teacher working conditions. In addition, EPSB is supposed to be providing reports to the General Assembly staff on staffing. This has not been done. We recommend that the General Assembly may want to clarify how often these reports should be produced and what type of information should be included in them. In order to track teacher vacancies, KDE must develop a method to be able to say how many unfilled teacher positions the school, district, or state has at any given time. And as Allison mentioned earlier about the Gateway and NKU transfer program for teacher certification, in addition, KSU and the Kentucky Community and Technical College has just partnered to provide the same types of opportunity for aspiring teachers. Because of these programs, the General Assembly may want to consider adding teaching positions as a high-need workforce sector. This would allow teacher candidates to qualify for the Work Ready Scholarship Program. The next three recommendations are related to reporting public school staff correctly and ensuring job descriptions and qualifications are correct. Most classified job descriptions were established more than 30 years ago. KDE should review and revise job descriptions to ensure job duty requirements are correct and staff qualifications are being met. In addition, KDE should collect required data on contract staff that are working in school districts and report correctly to the U.S. Department of Education. And KBE should pass a regulation that governs the qualification of minimum requirements of instructional aides in accordance with KRS 161044. In addition, KDE staff should evaluate alternative tests that instructional aides may take in order to work in a Title I school when they do not meet the associate degree requirement. And our final recommendation has to do with how much instructional funds or Section 6 funds districts allocate to school-based decision-making councils. Teachers reported resources at the school needed improvement, and over half mentioned spending quite a bit or a tremendous amount of their own money on classroom supplies. For these reasons, we feel the General Assembly may want to consider discontinuing budget language allowing less instructional funds to be allocated to schools. This concludes our presentation, and we would be happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Thank you so much for keeping it tight. Appreciate that. We're going to do about 5 to 10 minutes of questions here, but I want to warn members and warn the presenters that my co-chair and I just spoke up here, and this is a very important topic, and we'll probably circle back to this topic at a future meeting.
Okay.
So this will not be the end of it today. So, but I really appreciate the study and the thorough work on everything. I'm going to start us off on slide 15. One of the main things that stuck out to me is if you I'll give you a second to get there. So if you add the first 3 years, if you add those totals up, we have the lack of candidates in post-secondary to start with, and then they've passed their praxis and they're getting into the profession. So it appears and I want you to comment on this if you can. We're losing 30 to 40% of our teachers in the first 3 years. Is that accurate?
It's not quite accurate. So
Okay.
what we did was within those school years, we looked at teachers with certain levels of experience. So amongst all teachers who only have 1 year of experience, 15 left. And amongst all teachers who had 2 years of experience, 12% left. So it's not quite right to add them up. What you could say was the maximum within any year of experience was about 15.4% of those teachers left, and the average was 7.2. And I can understand how you could look at this and think to add them, but to clarify.
Got it. I was doing that wrong. So, but it is still a tremendously large amount to
Yes.
lose at the very beginning.
15 is a lot.
Did you come across anything related to teacher pay as student teaching, when teachers were doing their student teaching and they had the pay problem there? Did you look at that at all?
What we found is in Kentucky, you don't get paid for that.
Right.
But in Chapter 4, there is a section that talks about what other states are doing, and a lot of states are starting to pick that up and start paying for that. We have some examples in Chapter 4 of that.
But did you see? I guess my question is, did
Are
you-
any districts doing it right now?
No. Because student teachers weren't paid and weren't able to work other places, did we see a loss in teachers at that point? Did you look at that?
That
at all?
was not part of the analyses that we were able to do,
Okay.
unfortunately.
No problem. And then my last question before I open it up to others is the very last slide 45. By allowing more SBDM funding, how will that help with the teacher shortage crisis?
It wouldn't necessarily help with the teacher shortage. This is discussing that teachers are paying a lot of their own money buying supplies for the classroom. And then they're also saying we don't have enough instructional supplies at our school. So what we're saying is you all allow in budget language for districts to give less than the 3.5%. You allow them to give the district to give a school $100. So we're saying that
So
maybe
by
if you free
changing this
that up.
language, theoretically, it allows more money to flow for these types of resources.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
It
I
may
was unsure
increase
about
their working conditions.
that. Gotcha. Appreciate that. Senator Deneen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your report. As a retired educator, I wholeheartedly agree with the evidence that you presented in many cases, and I do want to point out on slide 15, the chairman referred to earlier. The first-year teaching shortages, we have seen an increase in alternative teaching certifications, over 1,000. So when you look at that, this emphasizes the importance and the need to bring back teacher mentorship programs to help those alternatively certified teachers or people that are coming into the profession through areas such as option 6, which has been expanded. We need to really take a close look at the importance of what we used to call and used to run as K-TIP programs and K-PIP programs. When it comes to your principals out there that are seeing this gap between their perception of how things are and their staff's reality, as a former teacher and elementary principal, I can assure you that that is sometimes the case as principals want to do a good job. They want to give the impression or give the idea that everything is going well because they're trying to implement new programs, and it's difficult. But to have a K-PIP program where those principals have a mentorship program is vital. It's vital for them to have these experienced retired teachers and principals to come back and to mentor those folks and to help them. So I'm very encouraged, or want to say I am very much for bringing back those mentorship programs to help salvage those first-year teachers and to give them the support system they need. And I agree that, we have some other areas to deal with, but some of the language as it refers to to the limits on the involvement of retired teachers able to come back into the system to either teach fewer classes or mentor some of the younger teachers is a vital step that we need to look at some of those languages in statute as it relates to how long they can participate and come back. And I will leave this. I do believe that we need to take a hard look at our funding of our transportation system, our SEEK funding, and our COLA increases. All of those are expensive items. There's no doubt. Those are all expensive items. But when you look at those fundings of those things, for example, transportation at a incremental rate until we can get to where we need to be, it really opens up the funding, as you were saying, with SEEK funding for teachers to be able to utilize that for student outcomes. So it gives the districts a little bit more leeway in how they use that funding currently used on transportation. So I'm encouraged by your study and by your report, but I'm not surprised by what it highlights. And I would love to come back and revisit this so that we can dig in a little bit deeper into some of the results of your study. And yes, the Standards Board, they need to come and do that study and give us that data, especially on option 6 as those expanded. What's that look like? Are they still filling those gaps? Are they filling in some of those shortages? So I'm encouraged by that request as well. So thank you.
We have 3 members left to ask questions. If you could, members, please keep it tight because we have some members that have meetings. Representative Bojanowski.
So just briefly, I tried to count all the money that I'm paying out of pocket for my classroom, and I've essentially given up. So I put them in a file. I do have several questions, but I will ask most of them via email. Following Senator Deneen talking about losing teachers in the early years that they're teachers, how much of an impact would you think, or do we need to really study, that having paid maternity leave would affect teachers choosing once they have a child? Because we've got young women who are teachers, they're having babies, and we have no paid maternity leave, so they have to use whatever sick days they have, which is not a lot because they're new teachers, and then they just have to take unpaid days. What point does that become, I'm just going to stop teaching, take a break, raise my kid for a while, and then come back to teaching? And how would paid maternity leave possibly mitigate that?
That unfortunately was not part of this study, so we didn't get to dive into that. That would have to be something that the co-chairs, ask us to look at more in depth.
Senator Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation and the work you did on this study. The Grow Your Own in Nelson County, did you actually look at how successful that's producing more teachers or any of that?
They're actually just in that startup phase. They've got kids that are going through it right now, so we're not aware of them actually completing it yet.
Okay. Well, I would be curious because I've always thought that that's the greatest place to recruit is right there in your schools. And so I'd be more interested in finding out how successful that program is of actually getting them into the college. And, of course, I represent WKU, and I know about the program, and so I'm very hopeful for that.
Yes.
But thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Banta, you will be the last question.
Did you look at all at the Kentucky Department of Education's MOA process? They have many people that have been there for 10 years on MOAs. They have, I believe, 157, don't hold me to that, 157 people on MOAs, and they were looking to add like 20 more. I don't understand why we're taking really qualified people out of the classroom and putting them to work with other teachers, but there may not even be teachers there to work with because we need them in the classroom. I also have that same beef sometimes with central office. when I asked for data with central office, leaving positions open to substitutes to bring somebody over to a central office position just makes my mind expand out of my skull. So did you look at all at MOAs and what the, okay.
We did do a 10-year study years ago that looked at staffing trends, and it did have the number of MOAs. We looked at districts and KDE. There's a 10-year study we did, and it's been about 10 years probably.
Yeah, it's too old.
So, that would need to be updated and reviewed.
Yes, that would be blissful. Thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude our questions. At this time, I would like to present our plan to you to keep you informed on how we need you. As you know, Frankfurt is fluid sometimes, so I've already changed my mind 2 or 3 times up here since we've been speaking. So I thought we would have you back in this committee. This committee will not meet in December. We do meet during session, but this is such an important topic. I want to have you guys in Senate Education, January, probably. I can't speak for co-chair Tipton or Chairman Tipton, whether he'll have you guys in the House. I'm assuming he probably would. But be prepared, if you would, present in overall education in January as we get into session and start looking at this topic. But really appreciate your all's work. Do you have a comment? No. Okay. Really appreciate your all's hard work on this, and it's obviously very timely, and we look forward to working with you
Thank
in
you.
the future. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.